Have you ever felt caught between two worlds? Like you're neither who you used to be, nor who you're becoming? Maybe you've experienced this during a major life change, a breakup, moving to a new city, or starting a new job. Or maybe it happened when you were recovering from something deeper, like trauma or loss. This feeling, this in-between state, is called liminality. It's a concept that originated in anthropology, but has since found its way into psychology, mental health, and even the workplace. The thing about liminality is that it's not a fixed state. It's a threshold, a space where you're no longer in the past, but not quite in the future either. It's unsettling, even disorienting, but it's also where the most profound transformations happen. The truth is that we spend more time in liminal spaces than we realize. The word liminality comes from the Latin word limen, meaning threshold. It was first used by anthropologist Arnold van Gennep in 1909 in his book Rites of Passage, where he examined the rituals that mark the transitions between different stages of life. He divided these rituals into 3 phases: separation, liminality, and incorporation. In the separation phase, individuals are removed from their previous role or status. Think of the bride leaving her family before a wedding. The incorporation phase is when they are fully integrated into their new role, like when that same bride becomes a wife. But in between these 2 phases is the liminal stage, where the person is betwixt and between, no longer belonging to their old status, but not yet fully integrated into the new one. Victor Turner, another anthropologist, expanded on Van Gennep's work in the 1960s. Turner focused on this in-between space, suggesting that liminality isn't just a passive phase we go through. Instead, it's a powerful state where the normal order of things is suspended, allowing for creativity, transformation, and even the breakdown of social hierarchies. Turner saw liminal spaces as places where the usual rules don't apply, where people are free to explore new possibilities. Think about a traditional rite of passage like a graduation ceremony. It's not just a formality, it's a symbolic transition from one stage of life to another. But there's always that moment in the middle, when you're walking across the stage, where you're not quite a student anymore but not quite a graduate yet. That's liminality, and it's in that moment that change happens. What's fascinating is that this anthropological concept has made its way into psychology, particularly when it comes to understanding mental health and personal growth. Psychologists see liminality not just as a cultural phenomenon, but as a psychological process that happens during transitions in life. Whether those transitions are positive, like getting married, or negative, like recovering from trauma. Therapy itself can be thought of as a liminal space. When someone enters therapy, they're often in a state of transition, caught between their past and future selves. They've usually come to therapy because something isn't working, but they're not yet sure what the solution is. In that in-between space, the therapist helps them explore different parts of themselves, experimenting with new identities and ways of thinking before they reintegrate into everyday life. Paul Stenner, a psychologist who has done extensive research on liminality in mental health, suggests that the liminal space isn't just a place where people feel lost or stuck. It's also a place of potential. In a 2015 paper, Stenner pointed out that during these liminal phases, people often experience a surge in creativity and cognitive flexibility. This makes sense when you think about it. When you're no longer bound by your old identity, but haven't yet committed to a new one, there's a kind of freedom to explore possibilities that you wouldn't normally consider. Take, for example, trauma recovery. When someone is recovering from trauma, they're often trapped in a liminal space, unable to fully move past their experience, but also unable to return to their pre-trauma self. It's a difficult place to be in, but it's also where some of the most important work happens. As Stenner and others have shown, therapy can help people navigate this space, using the flexibility of liminality to build a new, more resilient sense of self. Liminality doesn't just happen on a personal level. It also occurs on a societal and organizational level, especially in the workplace. Today, many employees exist in what Johnson and Sorensen, 2015, term a state of permanent liminality. With the rise of flexible work arrangements, gig economies, and constant restructuring, more and more people are caught in jobs where their roles and identities are in constant flux. Ibema et al., 2011, argue that this state of perpetual liminality has become a defining feature of postmodern organizational life. They suggest that the traditional view of liminality as a temporary state between more stable positions no longer holds in many contemporary work environments. Instead, liminality has become an enduring condition, challenging our understanding of organizational structure and individual identity within it. This permanent liminality can be both empowering and destabilizing. On one hand, it fosters creativity and innovation. Tempest and Starkey, 2004, posit that liminal spaces in organizations can be crucibles of creativity, where individuals, freed from rigid roles, can think outside the box and develop novel solutions. This aligns with Turner's original concept of liminality as a space of possibility and transformation. However, the flip side of this coin is the potential for anxiety and burnout. Beach, 2011, explores how prolonged liminality can lead to identity struggles, as individuals continuously negotiate and renegotiate their sense of self in shifting organizational contexts. This constant state of becoming, without ever fully arriving, can be exhausting. Moreover, Garston, 1999, argues that temporary workers, perhaps the quintessential embodiment of workplace liminality, often find themselves in a paradoxical position. They are simultaneously insiders and outsiders, part of the organization, yet not fully integrated into it. This liminal position can offer freedom and flexibility, but also insecurity and a lack of belonging. The challenge in the workplace becomes learning how to navigate this perpetual liminality without losing yourself in the process. The ability to find stability in instability, to create coherence in the midst of flux, may well be the defining skill of the modern workforce. Liminality doesn't just affect our psychology, it also leaves its mark on our brains. Research in neuroscience suggests that liminal states, characterized by transition and uncertainty, may create ideal conditions for neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize and form new neural connections. Pasquale-Leone et al., 2005, established that the human brain is remarkably plastic, changing in response to new experiences. This plasticity is particularly evident during periods of uncertainty or learning, hallmarks of liminal states. When we're in these threshold spaces, caught between our old selves and new possibilities, our brains become more adaptable. Consider the liminal experience of learning a complex new skill. Maguire et al., 2006, found that London taxi drivers, while learning the city's intricate street layout, experienced growth in their hippocampi, brain regions crucial for spatial memory. This physical change in brain structure illustrates how intensely liminal learning experiences can reshape our neurobiology. These findings suggest that liminal states, far from being merely psychological phenomena, have tangible effects on our brains. The uncertainty and potential for transformation that characterize liminality seem to create neurological conditions ripe for change and growth. In short, when you are in a liminal space, your brain is primed for transformation. The discomfort of liminality may well be the sensation of your brain reshaping itself, ready to embrace new possibilities. Liminality, whether we experience it personally, socially, or even neurologically, is a space of transformation. It's uncomfortable because it defies clear categories. We're not who we were, but we're not yet who we will become. It's a void, a space where the normal rules don't apply, but it's also where growth happens. The challenge is learning to embrace that void. Instead of seeing liminality as a place of uncertainty or fear, see it as a place of possibility. As Turner pointed out, in rituals, liminal spaces break down social hierarchies and norms, allowing for creativity and new ways of thinking. When we're in liminal spaces, we're no longer bound by our past identities. Instead, we're free to explore new ways of being, to think in ways that we wouldn't normally consider. The more we can embrace it, the more we can use it to fuel our personal and collective growth. So, the next time you find yourself in a state of transition, whether it's a career change, a breakup, or just a moment of uncertainty, remember that you're in a liminal space. It might feel uncomfortable, but it's also where the most profound transformations happen. Embrace the void. It's where you'll find your next self.